Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to weekly live Q&A. I'm so excited that you've chosen to be here. I was going to say I have questions, but those were from last week. I don't have any questions yet this week. Hello. Welcome. This is live. I'm so happy you're here. If you happen to be triggered during any time of this broadcast, the conversations we have here are this is Q&A for anyone living with PTSD or CPTSD symptoms as a result of childhood trauma in the form of abuse. And so the discussions can be quite graphic in nature, and you can at any point during this broadcast perhaps feel dry mouth, clammy hands, upset stomach. Please just step away from the video, step away from the stream, and receive the care you deserve. There should be our wonderful intern, Poppy, is posting right now, wherever the chat might be, here or over there. You should have crisis hotline information. If you're a rape, abuse, or incest survivor, if you prefer texting, if you're living in a domestic violence situation, if you're living with an eating disorder, if you are having self-harm tendencies, if you're having suicidal tendencies, and there are all these different crisis hotlines that you can contact should you be in crisis during this broadcast. So thank you so much. If you're watching a replay, just click the allow chat or show chat or live chat, and you'll be able to see all that crisis hotline information on the replays. I'm so grateful for that. So special thank you to Poppy for all that she does. And say thank you to Poppy if you guys happen to be here for the live stream. Every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, here we are. And then a special thank you to Matt as well, who is an amazing moderator, handles all of your questions. If you have a question that you want to reach me, then tag Matt and he will get me the question. And last week, I have something funny to share with you guys. At the end of the live stream last week, after Matt had already gone home, after everyone had already gone home, and it was just you and I here hanging out towards the very, very end, my son showed up. And he's like, Mom, say hi to me. Say hi to me, Mom. And I didn't see it, of course, because I'm not watching the live feed. And some of you guys thought he was a troll, and he's like, I love you anyway for not saying, even though you didn't say hi to me, I love you anyway. And he put a heart. So anyway, he called me last week right after the live stream, and I was like, oh my gosh, were you just showing up to say hi and to support our community? And he's like, yeah. So anyway, if you guys ever see my son in the chat stream, he's probably the only one that's going to be calling me Mom or Ma, M-A. And I believe his username is Meningizi, because long story, he had meningitis back in 2012. So, and he didn't die, thank God, because he could have. So he survived meningitis. But anyway, sidebar, I know that those of you who are new here have no clue what I'm talking about, and you really just don't care. So tonight's topic is safe people versus unsafe people. And of course, we're going to talk about healthy boundaries. And I do have a handy screen share for you guys. But really quickly, I want to say hello to John Harvey. Thanks for being here early, you guys. Hello to Poppy. Hello to all of you who are here early. And let me just find the screen share. Normally I have everything so set up and ready, you guys. I've been working behind the scenes sort of on a project. And I always say behind the scenes, but it's not really, because I talk about it with you guys here. So it's not really behind the scenes. I've been working while I'm not here recording videos on Monday nights. I've been working behind the scenes with Matt, and we're building an infrastructure for daily recovery support calls, which is what we've been talking about for weeks and weeks and months, actually. If you're interested in sort of being some of our guinea pigs, for lack of a more appropriate phrase, if you're interested in receiving some free support that's going to end up costing money, but you want to help us test out the software, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to invite everyone to show up a week from tomorrow. So it would be the 2nd. Tomorrow's the 1st of May. So it will be the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It'll be the 8th of May. Tuesday, May 8th. Don't know what time yet. But we're going to do kind of a dry run of like what our daily recovery support calls are going to be. There'll be some guidelines in the beginning. It'll be very interactive. And it's going to be every day, 365 days a year. And it will be me. It will be Matt. It'll be a lot of you guys that you see here during the live streams and down in the comment section. It will be other guest speakers. I'm working on networking with other professionals, medical doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, advocates in the community, people who have survived trauma and have gone on to live very happy, fulfilling lives. I'm getting a lot of different people to show up, and it's not always 365 days a year. It's not going to be me or Matt. It's going to be other people also who are going to show up and lead the call. So it's not to say that we won't be there, but we may or may not be there, but we're going to have, I've already reached out to several people and they've all said yes. So I'll reveal all that at a later time, but just wanted to let you guys know if you're interested in sort of like being part of the beta testers. We have a whole bunch of email addresses. I think there's like 80 of you that have already said yes. You're interested in all of this. So I'll send you guys an email and let you know what's going on. But if you haven't already sent an email, send it to me, info@cptsdfoundation.org. And Harriet, when you are transcribing this and on all the transcriptions forever until the end of time, let's not put the @ sign and then the .org. info@cptsdfoundation.org, because bots crawl and then I get all kinds of spam to the email. And so what I want to do is use the word @ in parentheses and then use the word in parentheses. So hopefully Harriet gets that message. I'll have to email her. I need to remember to email her and tell her that, because it's I get a lot of horrible spam that's like super X-rated and disgusting from all the bots that crawl the internet. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up our screen share so I can share with you guys a recap of unsafe people versus safe people. And then we're going to talk about boundaries, and I'm going to answer all of your questions. So for just the next couple of minutes, I'm going to do a screen share, and then right at the half of the hour, I'll start answering your questions. Let's see here. Hopefully I can. Oops. There we go. Hi to Ashton. Hello to CZ. All right. Keep sending in your questions, you guys. You have another 15 minutes to send in your questions. And if you send in your questions within the next 15 minutes, then I will answer them. Let me pull up the screen share. Here we go. We're on week 4 already of this series, you guys. Can you believe that? Oh my goodness. We're going to do healthy boundaries. Awesome. Okay, I can bring this up for you guys now. Thanks for your patience and all of my lack of organization. I swear I'm going to nail this organization thing like sooner or later. I swear, you guys. Oops, wrong one. Hopefully this will eventually. Hopefully I'll just get this right, you guys. Let me get a drink of water while I'm at it, okay? While I'm having all this. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me see if you guys can see that. Hello to Shannon O'Brien. Hello to Candace. Thank you so much for sending in so many questions, you guys. Like 10 or 15 more minutes for questions. I hope you guys can see this. Let me see if you can see this. I wish I could like figure out like on my end somehow if you could see it. Can y'all see that? Let me see if you guys can see that. I think you can. I hope you can. All right. I'm just going to go for it. I'm hoping you guys can see this. So we're talking about safe people versus unsafe people tonight. And then, of course, you guys know, like, seriously, safe people and healthy boundaries are like my most favorite topics to be teaching on or leading a discussion on. It's like seriously my favorite. So we're on week 4 of this series. You can email Lisa if you don't have the support you deserve and you would like more support. It's free. It's always free. Email Lisa at cptsdfoundation.org if you would like to be welcomed into one of our online safe groups. And she will welcome you in. Now, sometimes there's a bit of a backlog because she receives a lot of emails like every single day. So please forgive if it takes a little while. There was a comment last week, in fact. Oh my goodness. Can someone really quickly go over to last week's video and like the comment? I think I liked the comment and I tried to respond to it and then my computer died. There's a comment that says, I emailed Lisa weeks ago and she hasn't gotten back to me. So if someone could really quick just go respond to her and say, we're so happy you've joined us. And Athena has mentioned you on this week's video and we're going to make sure you get welcomed into the free groups. If someone could just let her know, that'd be amazing. I don't even know the gal's name. I feel so bad. And then you can also ask Lisa about the daily recovery support calls, which is what I mentioned to you. And then next week, let's do asterisks on this one. On May 8th, we will all meet and test a daily call system together, and it's free. Of course, it's free. Okay, so tonight's topic: how do you have healthy boundaries with healthy people? Healthy boundaries with healthy people. Sometimes people don't think they need healthy boundaries with healthy people, but that is probably the biggest lesson that all of us can take away from this video. We're going to have healthy boundaries with healthy people. It's very important. You're going to have healthy boundaries with everyone. We have healthy boundaries with ourselves first, then with healthy people, and then especially with unsafe and manipulative people that are, toxic. Everyone gets the boundaries, all the boundaries for all the people. But when you have someone in your life that is unsafe or manipulative, it is important that you establish and maintain healthy boundaries with them, especially. But it's not necessarily especially. Like, I don't know why I have the word especially. I think it's just because they can do more damage to you. But it's important that we have healthy boundaries with healthy people as well, because it tells when we have the same rules across the board for everyone, it becomes our status quo, it becomes our norm, and it tells our subconscious that we're in a place of safety. And you know what that means, you guys? If we have healthy boundaries, our hypervigilance that is turned all the way up to 12 on a regular basis, it's like non-existent. When we have healthy boundaries, our hypervigilance only shows up when there's actually danger. It's not something that sticks around all day, every day, just for the fun of it, Like, many of us go around and we're in a state of hypervigilance on a regular basis. Ooh, Harriet, if you could pop up the video that we did on hypervigilance so that anyone who's not sure if they're living with hypervigilance can find out. So pop that video up on the YouTube card on the video we did on hypervigilance. So hypervigilance goes away if we have healthy boundaries, because your subconscious knows that you're safe, because it's just your rule of thumb. You're like, yeah, I deserve safety. Hello. Like, no, unsafe people aren't allowed in my life, and healthy people have to follow all the same rules. And these are healthy boundaries that I have within myself. So there. That's probably one of the biggest takeaways from today's video. If it were me, being able to tell you what your takeaway is, but you guys are the ones that need to decide what your takeaway is. But for me, just knowing that it's okay to have healthy boundaries with everyone. My husband is one of the healthiest people I know. He has very healthy boundaries. He's a very healthy, boundaried individual. Very, very healthy. But I have healthy boundaries with him. And sometimes I have to remind him of my boundaries. Sometimes I have to, maintain that boundary. The main difference is when you have unsafe and manipulative people in your life, establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries is very, 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 very painful and exhausting. So you can practice establishing healthy boundaries with yourself or with healthy people. And then when you get the hang of it and you feel a little bit more adept, a little bit like you're kind of like, blue belt, green belt, brown belt, and setting healthy boundaries, then you can move on to the toxic and unsafe people, because then you'll have more confidence. Sometimes it's hard to confidently establish and maintain healthy boundaries. We're afraid of abandonment. And the thing that your subconscious needs to know is that you are able to be safe. You have the ability to create safety in your life, and you're not going to be abandoned. That's what your subconscious needs to know, that you're safe. You have the ability to create safety in your life, and you're not going to be abandoned and rejected. And I am living proof that this is possible. I have some of the most unhealthy and toxic individuals in my family of origin. I come from a long line of abusers, drug addicts, alcoholics, pedophiles, human traffickers, you name it. People who are predatory by nature, people who are sadistic, Machiavellian, sociopathic, psychopathic, people who have murdered other people and bragged about it, people who have harmed and exploited their children and their grandchildren, people who have tied people to beds and lit them on fire, I come from a long line of some pretty toxic and unsafe people. And not only do I have healthy boundaries with safe people in my life right now, but I have healthy boundaries with unsafe people in my life right now. And what that's done is it's turned my hypervigilance, which was turned up to 12 all day, every day. It's down to where it doesn't really show up unless there's actually danger. So I'm not in a constant state of exhaustion from trying to wonder if I'm safe or not. So I really want that for all you guys so, 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 so much. So moving right along, please send in your questions sometime within the next 6 minutes. Send in your questions so that I can get them answered. I'm going to start answering questions in 6 minutes. So let's once again briefly clarify the definition of manipulative or toxic or unsafe. And we're going to look at other definitions or synonyms for the word manipulative. So manipulative is characterized by unscrupulous control of a situation or person. And manipulative, some other words for manipulative are scheming, calculating, cunning, crafty, wily, shrewd, devious, designing, conniving, Machiavellian, artful, guileful, slippery, slick, sly, unscrupulous, disingenuous, and foxy. Not like Wayne's World, foxy lady, but foxy, like sly, like a fox, like trying to trick you, like lure you into a situation. So we're going to recap from the last couple of weeks some characteristics of unsafe and manipulative people. And remember, right now would be a good time. Sometime between now and the next couple minutes, take a screenshot of this and just remind yourself that these are things to be watching out for, and they're red flags. And I'm not saying that if someone has one of these in their lives, that they're a sadistic, horrible, abusive person. But if this is how they act all the time, and it's not the exception, it's actually the rule in their life, then you need to perhaps sit with the fact that they may be an unsafe person and consider the possibility that you may need to establish and maintain some healthy boundaries with these people. And the people I'm talking about are people who, starting right at the top, you guys, they have it all together instead of admitting their weaknesses. They're extremely religious instead of more along the lines of someone who's spiritual and respectful of your spirituality. They are defensive instead of being open to feedback. They are self-righteous instead of humble. They only apologize when they're caught doing something instead of actually changing their behavior. They avoid working on their problems instead of dealing with them honestly. They demand your trust instead of earning it. They believe they are perfect instead of admitting their faults. And they blame others instead of taking responsibility for their thoughts and their actions. And remember, they're liars. They lie a lot instead of telling the truth. And lastly, they remain stagnant instead of learning and growing. Why don't we put learning and growing instead of just growing? Learning and growing. And then up here, you know what I want to add? I want to add up here up by spiritual. We need to remember that they're extremely religious instead of spiritual, and they likely are not respectful of your spirituality or religious beliefs. That is definitely not a safe characteristic. So moving down now, your turn. How do you feel about saying no to unsafe or manipulative people? And right next to saying no, I'm going to put having a healthy boundary, because that's all saying no really is. Saying no to having a healthy boundary with unsafe or manipulative people. What other characteristics would you add to this list? Ooh, you know what? Kathy added some, Kathy Bobathy, I think, or no, maybe it was Deborah Herendine. One of you guys added something to the list last week and I didn't add it, and I need to. What was it? Maybe it was that they don't respect your space. Oh goodness, I can't remember now, but it was a really good one. But down in the comments section below, if you're on a replay or if you're here live over in the chat box, what characteristics would you add? Let's add that to the discussion. 1 more minute for questions, you guys. Send in your questions within the next 1 minute, okay? And as always, please participate and add to this important discussion by typing in the chat box if you're here for our live weekly discussion, or down in the comments section below if you're watching a replay. Smiley face. Good rule of thumb: healthy and safe people are continually seeking personal growth. And it is always good to ask ourselves if we are continually seeking personal growth. And if we are not for some reason, a good follow-up question is, why am I not continually seeking personal growth? And remember, there is no shame if you're not in a place where you're able to seek personal growth. I don't even think I ended the parenthesis, did I? I didn't even end the parenthesis. I started the parenthesis and then didn't end it. There you go. Boom. If we're not in a place where we're experiencing personal growth or chasing after our health or seeking out personal growth, it could be that we're still in an abusive situation. We're still living in a domestic violence situation. We're still living with our abusers. We're still in daily, weekly, monthly, regular contact with abusers or enablers from our childhood and into our adult years. Those are the types of things that are going to cause you to be stagnant, cause you to feel overwhelmed and not be able to be in a place of personal growth. And all personal growth means, you guys, is that you feel good. You're learning, you're growing, and you feel good. You feel good. And the most important thing is that you feel good not at the expense of others and not at the expense of your own well-being, not at the expense of your dignity. You don't have to lie to feel good. You don't have to be secretive or withholding. You just feel good because you're seeking to learn and grow. So if that's something that you are in a place of being able to do, then great. And if not, there's no shame in that. Perhaps you are in a situation where you are stuck. Maybe you're stuck in a situation where you're living with someone who's very abusive and toxic. Hopefully these weekly videos and, getting together with everyone is something that encourages you so that you feel like at least one day a week somebody gets you, and they're respectful of your boundaries, and, you feel connected to the outside world and like you're not alone. So if you do want free support in some of our groups, which are amazing, then please email Lisa at cptsdfoundation.org if you would like to be welcomed into one of our online virtual safe communities. And they are always free, and they always will be free. And then if you are interested in daily recovery support calls, which are going to be on the telephone, or you can log onto a website and listen to them on a website, of course. You don't have to call in with your telephone. Then those are coming on May 15th. But remember, we're going to get together on May 8th. May 8th is our test beta run. Join us. Woohoo! Oops. Test equals beta or test dash beta. There we go. And it is okay to pause right now if you want to, and send Lisa an email and let her know that you're interested in the daily recovery support calls. Otherwise, then, that's okay. Nothing's going to change. I'm still going to be here every week. Every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I will be here just like I always have been for the last 4 years, not going anywhere. But if you want more, I'm going to offer more. More. Sometimes more is better. Sometimes more is better. Sometimes less is more. But now, here we go, you guys. I'm answering your questions. For the next 30 minutes, I'm answering questions. Thank you to Kira. Thank you to Sabra. Thank you to Miss Beachboxer and Shannon and Candace and Ashton and CZ and John Harvey. I got all your questions. No more questions. No more questions for you. Not till next week. Okay. Let's go in order. In the order that I received them, at least. John Harvey says, how do we recognize and handle unsafe survivors? Oh my goodness. I was wondering if anybody was going to ask this question tonight. Seriously, you guys. John Harvey, this is like the third time that you have asked a question that I was like going to pose to the community and like see so that everyone, you know, can get the answer to this question because it's super duper duper important. So thank you for the third time. I don't think I've thanked you the other times, but you guys, I'll never forget. It was about 4 years ago. Actually, it's about 4.5 years ago. About 4.5 years ago, maybe a little under 4.5. I automatically assumed once I found this online community of trauma survivors, I automatically assumed that everyone was safe. Like I had finally found my tribe and that every single person, I could just paint it with broad strokes, every single person was magically going to be safe because they had been through everything that I had been through. They were obviously just like me because I was stuck in black and white thinking. I was in a very small place, like children think in black and white thinking, you know, all or nothing, good or bad. There's no nuances. There are no nuances. There is no gray area. And I was sadly mistaken and hugely re-traumatized by several people in the trauma survivor community who kind of were there just for very self-serving purposes. Or I'm not saying that they're bad, horrible people. They're just there for different reasons than I was there. Like I was there to receive support and to give support. And I automatically assumed that everyone there was there to receive support and to give support, and that we were all going to be besties, all of us holding hands across the globe, you know, survivors, you know. And the truth is, the only way you're going to recognize those people, John Harvey, is if you screenshot what I showed you earlier, which I'll bring up one more time for you guys, just super fast so that you can really quickly screenshot this, okay? Really quickly screenshot that right there. Take a screenshot of that. Oh, having it all, oh, there we go. Having it all together. Okay. So that's the only way to recognize them. Unsafe people across the board have the same characteristics. And remember what I told you guys last week. This is my handy dandy unsafe personal traits of unsafe people list that I got in one of the very first groups I ever did in like 2006 or 2007. And remember what I said last week, you guys, I was the unsafest person in the room. I was just this single mom struggling to get by, living in an unhealthy situation, trying to raise my teenage boy. I think he was 13 at the time. 13? Yeah, I think he was 13. And I was just learning how to have boundaries. I was hobbling along and I was the unsafest person in the room. So if you have those unsafe characteristics, then that's okay. Don't count it all as lost. You know, like everyone's learning. We're all on a path. We're all growing. We're all healing. We're all going to be in a different place in our journey, and that's okay. That's how you're going to recognize those people. If I were being honest with you right now, impromptu, answering John Harvey's question, by the way, which was, how do I recognize and handle unsafe survivors? If I were being honest, those people that I shared with you when I first got involved in the survivor community, like 4.5 years ago, were they defensive instead of being open to feedback? Yeah. Were they self-righteous? Yeah. Would they, quote unquote, only apologize instead of actually changing their behavior if like something were to ever come to their attention? Probably, but I never even had the courage to like bring it to their attention. Did they avoid working on their problems instead of dealing with them honestly? Yeah. Do they demand that you trust them instead of earning your trust? Yeah. Like, I'm here with you. Like, I'm one of you. Hello, you know? And they believe they're perfect instead of admitting their faults. Yeah. Do they blame others instead of taking responsibility? Yeah. Do they lie? Yeah. And are they stagnant instead of growing? Some of them were. So those traits, they transfer, they cross over. Those are unhealthy traits, no matter who we're talking about. Whether we're talking about people in our kids' play date group, mom group, people at church, people at the Rotary Club meeting, people at a business networking meeting, uh, people at some sort of a mixer, a networking mixer for the community that you serve, people that volunteer for charities, you name it. If they have those characteristics, they're unsafe. And the way we handle them, John Harvey, to your point, to the second half of your question, how do we handle them? We handle them slowly and delicately. And what the reason I say slowly and delicately is when I was learning that not everyone in this community was a safe person, looking back, I'm like, why would I think that? But it's because when I was in that place, years ago, I was of the opinion that abusers looked like my abusers and safe people looked like my community that I had found. The ones, my tribe, my people, you guys, they look like you. Safe people look like you. But in all actuality, that was short-sighted on my part. And I wasn't aware of the subtle nuances that I needed to be paying attention to make sure someone was safe. So handle it slowly. Don't handle it right away. Like sit with it and maybe bounce it off of a safe person. Like I was thinking of establishing or maintaining a healthy boundary with this person because I'm not sure if they're safe or unsafe. This is what's happened. What do you think? Is this a safe or an unsafe characteristic? And perhaps in our groups, you can ask some people. That's one of the really great things about the groups is you automatically have this like big like group of people, and they're all kind of like a super brain. They're everybody's brains together and everybody's discernment and judgment together. And you can that way you're not passing off judgment or unable to discern. You have the wisdom of many. There's always it's always good to have the wisdom of many people in your corner. So I always, say, and you can do that in a confidential way. Like I have this person in my life and I'm not sure if this is a safe characteristic or an unsafe characteristic. And everything else about this person seems like this, but for some reason, and state the details and then, in a confidential way. And then maybe you can get some help in that way, then the people in the community can help you decide how to handle that. So I lean on the groups a lot. They're seriously our safe groups, the free support groups that we have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you guys. And they are my superpower. They're my secret weapon. I feel supported. I feel safe. I show up as myself, broken, messed up, frustrated, sad. And you guys are always very, very, very supportive. So I hope that was helpful. CZ says, how do we deal with friends who are disappointing? Tomorrow is my birthday, and I told my friend how important it was for me to have a friend that day, but he bailed on our plans anyway. Oh my goodness, this is so heartbreaking. You guys, everybody wish CZ a happy early birthday. Oh my goodness, that is so, 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 so devastating. I've had something like this happen, CZ. And, first of all, I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. It is extremely devastating and disappointing, especially when you had the courage to communicate your need. And if someone could let CZ know that I'm talking to them, because it's been about 20 to 30 minutes since they asked this question, so they might have moved on with their evening. But I wanted CZ to know, when stuff like this happens, you guys, we can be in a very triggered state, and the feelings we have may feel disproportionate to what it is that's going on. And there's a reason for this. And I'm not saying that anyone's feelings are disproportionate. You're feeling disappointed, and you're feeling, you just said disappointed. I'm the one that's projecting devastating and all these other big adjectives onto you. So I don't mean to project my junk all over you, CZ. It is very disappointing. And if it were me, the way I would feel, I would feel devastated. And in that moment, I would likely be in a triggered state, because when we finally get the courage to communicate our needs, and then our needs are not met, it is a stark reminder of what our entire lives were as a child, when we either didn't have needs because our needs were not supposed to be known, they weren't valued, they weren't paid attention to, they were non-existent. The only needs we had were to turn into whatever it is the people in our home needed us to be. Our needs didn't matter. And so when we're younger and our needs are not met, our basic needs, and then if we're an adult and we finally had the courage to communicate a need, and then a need isn't met, it can be traumatizing and trigger us back to a younger place when our needs were also not met. And so I say that you might not be feeling any of that, but I know that many people have, my clients, my loved ones, my friends. I would remember this situation moving forward, and perhaps if it were me, CZ, I would probably say to this person, I just wanted to let you know that it was disappointing for me to it was disappointing for me when you canceled our plans on my birthday. I had taken the time to communicate with you that having a friend around for my birthday would mean a lot to me, and I told you it was important for me. And rather than honoring that and keeping our plans, you canceled our plans. And so you may have had something else going on. I understand, it happens. But in order to remain authentic and just honor my own feelings, I just wanted to communicate with you that that was disappointing for me. And just wanted to let you know. So if that feels unsafe to you, CZ, you could say nothing. You could journal about it. You could share with another person in confidence how disappointed you felt. If you need to be validated in how disappointing that can be and how painful that can be, I want to validate for you how painful that is, and how I would be. I've had this happen, and it was extremely devastating for me for all the reasons that I already stated. And that is that my basic needs in childhood were not met. Food, water, shelter, safety, clothing, kindness, acceptance. Those basic needs were not met on a regular basis. There was a lot of abuse and a lot of toxicity, and I didn't have the courage to communicate my needs. And when I did communicate my needs, they were met with disdain or anger or abuse. And so getting the courage to communicate my needs now in adulthood, it's been a long road. It's been very difficult for me to do that. But I'm finding ways to do that in a safe way, and I hope that you will too, because you deserve it. You deserve to have your needs met. So I would tread lightly. I would communicate with them that it was disappointing, and perhaps widen your circle of friends, and maybe this person moves out a rung and they're not in your safe circle. They're like moved out one layer or something. It's kind of how I would probably move forward with that. Ashton says, what are some ways we can assist and encourage those around us, like our friends, who find it hard to keep healthy boundaries with their abusers? I think one of the most encouraging ways we can encourage that we can help those around us and help them to see the value of healthy boundaries is by simply modeling healthy boundaries for them. And especially for those of us in this community that have been ostracized from our families of origin and we feel very lonely, I think that one of the most helpful and encouraging things we can do is to model healthy boundaries for them and then give them opportunities to test out and try establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries with us or with other people, and like offering to possibly be like their accountability partner in a way. Like, has anyone gotten the courage to establish a healthy boundary with someone today? If so, I would love to hear, how that went, because I'm struggling to establish some healthy boundaries in my life. And maybe, over in the groups, have an open discussion on the topic of boundaries. Modeling healthy boundaries and then asking people if they want to like test that out. Like, there's nothing is more valuable than trying something out in a safe environment. So that when you go out into the real world, in air quotes, it's less scary. Kind of like for my clients, when we do exposure therapy for some social anxiety. I'm not a huge proponent of prolonged exposure therapy when it comes to many things. There are only a couple of things that I am a firm believer that exposure therapy is the way to go. And that is with social anxiety and with body dysmorphia. So some of my clients that have social anxiety, we will have a field trip together. We'll be on FaceTime or we'll be on a phone call, and they will leave the house and they will go and run an errand. And it has to be an errand where the outcome is always positive. In other words, I need to go and I need to ask someone if I could please buy some stamps, or if I could please pay for this bottle of water. And they say, yes, I will take your money. Thank you so much. Have a great day. You have a great day too. Thank you so much. And it's a good thing. Or we go buy a coffee, or we go buy a sandwich, or we go and we do something where the outcome is always positive. And then moving forward, it's less stressful. So I recommend that is something we can do with boundaries. With body dysmorphia, we do movement. We do movement where we either do leg lifts, arm lifts, or something, and we lovingly accept our bodies just as they are, and that's a form of exposure therapy as well. But normally, I would not be a huge proponent of exposure therapy, but those things work, and they do work with boundaries as well. Ashton, great question. Candace says, I've asked a guy to stop bringing up my dating life, and he won't. So do I leave the group of hikers I otherwise enjoy, or do I just ignore him? Candace, that is a great question. It sounds like this person is a boundary buster. I have a lot of boundary busters in my life. Most of them I only see on the weekends. And so I can ignore them because I only see them on the weekends. And it doesn't seep into like the rest of my life. And so, so far that's worked. And if just ignoring them didn't work and I felt violated, then I guess a good way to test this, Candace, would be to gauge your level of anxiety and panic and elevated heart rate, dry mouth, clammy hands, upset stomach, etc. Gauge how you feel before you leave to go meet up with these hikers. And if it's affecting your mental and emotional and physical well-being to the point where you're unable to recoup your feeling good within, a few minutes to an hour, then I might find a different group of hikers. But I would hate for you to have to change your whole life around for this person. Honestly, perhaps if you just pretend they aren't even there, ignore them, don't roll your eyes, don't respond when they want to get a reaction out of you. It sounds like this person may be reaction seeking. Now, they could be a predator that is sadistic and unkind and sociopathic or narcissistic, and I just don't know it. So I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a medical doctor, or a legal counsel, or a member of the police department. So I'm only giving you what I would do. At first, I would try to ignore. And if that didn't work, and I felt that they were perhaps toxic and perhaps predatory, like they were going to seek retribution for me not succumbing to their, advances, and not, like, if I decided to not acquiesce to what it is that they were trying to instigate in me, and I felt unsafe, then I would probably quit going. But I would start with just ignoring, because that sounds like a pretty simple thing. I hope that works out. Will you let us know? Because I would really like to know. Shannon says, how do we tell the difference between a person who is hurt and one who is truly unsafe? Great question, Shannon. So someone who is hurt will exhibit these characteristics, and when you bring them to their attention, they will say, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I am so sorry. I am so glad you brought that to my attention. It was not my intention to be this way, or to act this way, or to affect you in this way. I will proceed differently moving forward. And I'm so glad you brought that to my attention. If someone could let Shannon O'Brien know that I'm talking right at her, like, I see you. And like, this is a good one, because traumatized individuals look just like toxic individuals at first glance sometimes. We all, and I'm talking about me. I'm like the biggest one in the room right here. We can all appear to be very unsafe at first glance if we exhibit those characteristics. But the difference is, when someone brings them to our attention, we say something along the lines of, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. That was not my intention. Moving forward, I will definitely not respond in that way. And I'm so glad you brought it to my attention. Will you accept my apology? It would mean a lot to me if you accepted my apology. And if you don't accept my apology, I understand, but I just want you to know it was never my intention. So that is how a safe person responds when they're called out on their shit. An unsafe person, on the other hand, when you call them out on something and you let them know that they've bothered you, they will usually do something along the lines of like throw a tantrum like a 3-year-old, or they'll stonewall you and never speak to you again, or they'll trash you and start a smear campaign trying to make you look crazy and horrible in front of like a whole bunch of other people. That's how you tell someone is truly unsafe versus just hurt. I have been on the ass end of that, I'll tell you. Oh my goodness. Guayanes, I skipped your question earlier and I never said thank you. Can someone say thank you to Guayanes, please? It was about 30 to 45 minutes ago that Guayanes asked this question. So I wanted to let them know that I'm talking right to them. Guayanes says, how do I teach and set boundaries with my kids? This is such a good question. Thank you so much for the excellent questions, you guys. So the only way I was able to teach and set good boundaries with my son is by humbly, remember one of the things is humility here. One of the things is not being like all knowing and self-righteous, but being humble instead. So I humbly came to my son and asked him if it was a good time to sit down and talk with him. And he said, sure, what's up, mom? Like probably, and like, like what? And I said something along the lines of, I I have not been a very healthy person for a lot of years. And I am learning a lot about what unhealthy people look like. And I've been really unhealthy. And I am learning what healthy boundaries are. And so I just want you to know that I'm going to be establishing and maintaining some very healthy boundaries with you and with other people and with myself moving forward. And so if you see me acting a little bit different, then that's what it is. But it's for my own good and your own good. And so I'm gonna be modeling behavior for you that looks different than the behavior that I've been modeling for you for the previous 13 years. Obviously, have an age-appropriate conversation with your children, Guayanes. My son was 13, so I could very easily have that type of a conversation with him. I think he said something along the lines of like, "Oh, okay, cool." I'm pretty sure that was how he responded. And people don't like boundaries at first. Like, I'm sure I got a lot of eye rolls when I acted different than I normally would have. I used to say yes to everything, and I started saying, no, I don't think I want to do that right now. Or I think one of the things was like I would usually drop everything and I would drive wherever, whenever, whatever time it was, and I would always pick my son up. And it came to the point where I was like, you know what? I want you to be home at a certain time, and if you're not, you need to get your own ride home. And I don't think that went over very well at first. But have an age-appropriate conversation with your kids unless they're really young, and then don't miss this. Don't miss this. Someone like Guayanas know that I'm talking right to them about the children. Children, listen less for words because your actions are blaringly loud. Your actions speak so much louder than your words. So if you say certain things to your children, they'll in one ear and out the other you, and they'll watch you. And if they see you behaving a certain way, they will model their lives after what they see you doing. And so in order for me to make this a good thing and make it actually work, I had to do what I said I was going to do. And I did. And kids are very honest. They will hold you accountable. When my son was about 16, maybe he was 15, I did something really stupid. I mean, I had this little party at my house and I invited my neighbors over and my friends from work, and everybody was drinking lots of alcohol. And I had like two martinis, maybe even like 3 Grey Goose martinis. Like, I wasn't driving anywhere. I was staying home, but like, hello, I'm a mom. Like, my son is sitting on the couch playing video games and I'm having martinis with my neighbors. And like, I had never really done that before. Like, remember, my life was very isolated. So I hadn't really done that before. And I was just an idiot. I was talking really loud, like drunk people talk, and I was acting like a total asshole. And so the next morning I sat down with my son and I just said, I owe you a big apology. I was an idiot and I drank like way too much alcohol, and doesn't matter that we were staying home and I wasn't driving. Like I'm your mom and you should be able to count on me all the time. Not just like when I decide not to drink alcohol with the neighbors and my friends from work. Like, even though I had never done that before, I still felt like a total asshole. And I apologized to him right away next morning. And I asked him if he would forgive me and accept my apology. And he said, of course, Mom. And then he gave me a hug. But it did affect him. Like, him seeing me that way was very, it was not good. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, whenever he would visit his dad occasionally when he was younger, his dad drank pretty heavily. And, it's not my goal in life to be drunk around my kid. Like, I know what that feels like. I grew up in an alcoholic, drug addict home. Like, I swore I would never be like my family. And I wasn't most of the time. But when my son was 15 and my neighbors had a guitar and they were going to come over and play guitar, and we all had martinis and my son was playing video games, and my guard went down, and I just felt like a total horrible mother, and I owned it. and he forgave me, and I never did it again, ever. But, again, that's the one thing here, right? It says you don't just apologize, you change your behavior. If I was an unsafe person, like I had been previously, like this is after I'd been working on like how to be a safe person for like 3 or 4 years. So you're going to screw up, you guys. Everybody's going to screw up. Like, hello, I mean, what was this? Like probably 2008 that this happened. That was 10 years ago. I mean, I've never done that again. I mean, of course I've had martinis, but I mean, I didn't act like a total a-hole, and I was in charge of, another human and decided to, be intoxicated. But still, you just got to own it. You got to model behavior for your kids in a way that you would be proud of if they grew up and acted just like that, Otherwise, you own it and you apologize for it and you change your behavior. So I hope I answered someone's question. Oh my goodness. I just went on and on and on talking about myself. Sorry about that. Miss Beachboxer says, I have such a tough time getting away from people who take my energy, being too needy. I'm like a mom. I know I was this way for quite some time, Miss Beachboxer, especially when my son left to go be in the military. I found myself mothering so many people. I was in such a wounded, lonely place of deprivation and sadness and just abandonment that I attracted people that needed me. They needed me. They sucked the life out of me. And it took me a while to realize, oh my goodness, like I do not need this in my life. I need to establish some healthy boundaries for myself and not allow myself to be like all my time to be, poured out in that direction. So you're not alone, Miss Beachboxer. I wanted you to know that I've done that too. And it's really, really hard. But there is hope, I promise, because I don't do it anymore. Sabra says, are there helpful ways to keep boundaries in check if we have to visit our toxic family of origin and when one of the not toxic family members is possibly deathly ill? I need to be involved, but I need to keep a distance for my own health and sanity. However, I am the closest to the sick family member, both emotionally and geographically. You know what, Sabra? This is a delicate situation. I'm not going to sit here and say this is simple. I'm not going to sit here and say, forget them. Who cares if they're deathly ill? You need to be safe and have healthy boundaries and go no contact and don't go around. And, that's not what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that this is delicate and that it is going to be tricky for you. And I am also going to say that I've had to do this myself. When my father was sick, he was in the hospital. He had just undergone a very heroic heart surgery I'm surprised he survived it. He was on life support for 16 days. And there were toxic people that were geographically close by to him and toxic people that were contacting me. I chose to fly there and be with him in the hospital for 16 days until he passed away. And in that time that I was there, Sabra, I got text messages from my dad's siblings that were just so unkind and so crazy making and so rude and so manipulative. Meanwhile, I had my mother's side of the family contacting me, needing me to manage their emotions, asking me how they should feel and what they should do and when could they see me. And I just wanted to be there for my dad, not because my dad wasn't a toxic person, but because I knew that was probably going to be the last time I was going to see him. And if we're all being honest, I was there representing my son. My son and my father were very, very, very close. My son was deployed in the Marine Corps, protecting our freedom, serving our country. He was deployed into another country at the time. He couldn't be there. His wife was right there by my side. We were working with the American Red Cross to get him messages, to try to get him to be able to fly, and it didn't work out. But, I made the main thing, Sabra. And I'm telling you that you might need to make the main thing the main thing. And you are the only one who's gonna know what the main thing is. For me, Sabra, my main thing is that I was there representing my son. I was there to honor my son. My son felt devastated that he wasn't there to be there with his grandpa. And that was hard for him, really hard, because there had been times that my dad had perhaps called him and he was busy and maybe didn't return his call. And those are the things you think of when someone's dying. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't return their phone call, or I never got to tell them I love them just one more time, you know? So I was there representing my son, and that was the main thing. And I was there to pray for my dad. You know, I had friends of mine who had known me from the time I was a little girl, friends who I'd stayed in touch with all these years, who used to sneak me out of my house when the cops were coming and get me far away from that place. I mean, people who knew me, like from when I was a little girl, like not even a teenager. They came and they were with me in the hospital there, and they prayed with my dad. And he was barely coherent. He could maybe squeeze a hand, but that was it. He was on life support. Like, he couldn't breathe on his own. So the only thing I could tell you, Sabra, is to keep the main thing the main thing. And if your main thing is that you're close with this family member that's ill, then you do whatever you can to keep yourself sane and safe. And what helped me is having a buffer. So I'm going to share this with you guys. And I know I'm going over time, but this is super important. So if you have to go, go. It's okay. Nothing bad's going to happen. I'm just going to sit here and talk for a few more minutes. So if you got to leave, you got to leave. But I'm going to drop some truth bombs here. If you got to be in a toxic situation with some toxic people, especially if they're family of origin, you got to have a buffer. You got to find someone who will be your wingman. I didn't know I needed one. On my dad's side of the family, my cousin, she stood up and she contacted every one of my dad's siblings, and she got in their face and was like, listen, quit sending your text messages, quit contacting her, quit making it worse. She's just trying to help her dad. She's saying bye to her dad. Leave her alone. So she was a buffer for me. And I would never want to be on her bad side, because, man, first of all, she's like a 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo. But second of all, she could lash you up one side and down the other. She has a tongue sharper than any razor blade. I mean, she gave them a piece of her mind, and she stood up for me, and she was a buffer. And for my mother's side of the family, that all needed me to manage their emotions, and they wanted to be in touch with me. They needed me. They needed to see me. They wanted to talk to me. My husband stood up and he said, how can I best support you? And I said, you're in charge of my mother's side of the family. My cousin took care of my dad's side of the family, and my husband took care of my mother's side of the family. And I was there every day, all day, 12 hours a day, talking to doctors and nurses and making decisions and meeting with people and reading to him and praying with him. And I did what I had to do. And I kept my son in the loop the whole time. I took videos and sent them to his wife. I communicated with my dad on my son's behalf. I videotaped me telling my dad that my son felt bad for not returning his calls, and he wants to know if you'll forgive him for not returning his calls, and do you know that he loves you? And my dad nodded and blinked. It was the only time that he was there on life support that he did anything but just lay there. He nodded and he blinked and said, yes, I forgive him, and yes, I know he loves me. Like, he and my son were so close. I mean, it was like, it was devastating for just to know that relationship had ended, because it was such a beautiful relationship. So make the main thing the main thing, you guys. And then in addition to that, you know, I had a friend. I mean, I was here My dad died on a Saturday and I was here recording videos with you guys. I had my friend Sherry's parents who let me stay at their house. They were a good buffer for me. They were a source of support for me. Bobby was there. Bobby was Googling and finding out where I could get my dad cremated and sending me telephone numbers on what to do and how to do it. Cause I was just like, I don't know what to do. I'm just here in the hospital. You know what I mean? So Sabra, make sure you have some support. You got to set yourself up for success ahead of time. Like seriously, find someone somehow, somewhere that can step in, even for just a day, and help and be a buffer for you. And if that's not possible, just guard yourself. Just protect that downtime that you have to sleep and to eat, because you're going to need it. You know, you're going to need to really, really rest and recharge, and you're going to need to eat like, you know, healthy to make sure that you don't get sick. So hopefully that was helpful. If someone could let Sabra know I was talking to her, I hope that that was helpful for her. Kira says, how do you come to terms with the distance you have established when it makes you feel guilty? The distance you've established. Maybe, okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, I'm Kira, and I'm coming to terms with the distance, meaning that I have healthy boundaries in place already. I'm coming to terms with that. There's some healthy distance there, but I'm feeling guilty. You know, we're going to feel guilty, Kira. It's a really good thing to perhaps understand that guilty feelings are going to come, and we can acknowledge that they're there. Thank you, guilty feeling, for coming and trying to make me feel guilty. I don't have time for you right now. I'll come back to you. Thanks for trying to come along and send me a message. You know, any feeling or thought that comes along, we don't necessarily have to invite it for dinner. Thoughts and feelings are going to come, and we need to thank them and acknowledge them and not numb them, stuff them, and avoid them. We need to acknowledge them. But then we need to choose to set them on a shelf, choose to put them in a container, choose to just tell them that we're going to come back to them. But thank you for giving me this message that you're giving me. I do not receive this guilty message that you're giving me right now. I'm choosing to not be guilty right now. I'm doing what's best for me. I'm doing what I need to do to maintain a level of mental and emotional and physical well-being. And I do that with people that try to send me guilt messages as well. I've straight up, I told you guys before, I got up in my husband's face, not my proudest moment, but I got up in his face, and I remember telling him, I do not receive your guilt messages, so you can just back off. Like, I was like up in his face about it. Again, when we remember what I keep saying every week, guys, I want to bring this home again. Okay. We are going to overcorrect. If we are driving along in a car and, you know, we notice that a car is coming straight towards us, we're not going to slowly merge out of its way. We're probably going to like swerve, and then we have to overcorrect, and you know, that's going to be that way with boundaries. Anything new that's coming our way that we're you know, learning. If you're learning how to drive, you aren't going to know how to navigate the vehicle. That you're going to overcorrect on accident. If you're just learning boundaries, you're not going to know how to politely and respectfully and joyfully and with simplicity and elegance and with ease put these boundaries in place and maintain them. We're going to overcorrect, and we're going to, you know, have rigid boundaries, and we're going to have porous boundaries, and we're going to feel guilty, and we're going to, oh, why didn't I say no? I should have said no. I meant to say no. Why did I say yes to that person? You know, we're going to overcorrect. We're going to say no too often. We're going to not say it. We're going to, you know, we have to just find what balance works for us. So guilty feelings will come, and we can acknowledge them, but we don't have to invite them to stay for dinner. And we can acknowledge that guilty feeling and say, thank you, guilty feeling. I'm not choosing to feel guilty right now. I need to do what's best for my emotional and mental and physical well-being. And I know that might sound crazy, but that's what I do, and it works. Shannon says, would magical thinking be a sign of an unsafe person? Not necessarily. Magical thinking is a sign of a traumatized person for sure. I don't know if they're unsafe. If they match these characteristics also in addition to magical thinking, then yes, I would say that they are an unsafe person. But if it's just magical thinking, they could be traumatized, or they could be stuck in a very small place in need of doing some major inner child work with a professional qualified therapist. But magical thinking alone, apart from all the other characteristics that we've been talking about, not necessarily unsafe. Just maybe not fully functioning and adult and healthy, in need of healing. Magical thinking in need of healing, in need of some inner child work, but not necessarily unsafe unless the other characteristics that we mentioned are also present. So hopefully that was helpful, you guys. We're 20 minutes over. I love spending time with you guys, and I hope this chat has been encouraging and healing and supportive. And I look forward to continuing to support you and have all of us heal together. Remember, 1 week from tomorrow, if you're not subscribed to this channel, please hit subscribe and click the bell for notifications, and you'll know when we're going to do the free daily recovery support call, just to the beta, just to test out the system, so that we can test it with you for free. Moving forward, it's what we're going to be charging people for. So it's $20 a month if you sign up between May 15th and June 15th. $20 a month. And that's 365 days a year, an hour each day. It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. And remember, there's going to be guest speakers. It's not just going to be me. You're going to have like amazing people. It's going to be me. It's going to be Matt. There's going to be a lot of you, people that you know, people that you follow on YouTube, people who have podcasts and you follow them, people whose blogs you follow, people whose columns you read in certain online publications. Not just me, not just Matt, but lots of people. So, Matt just happens to be the person that I do all things website and techie, and we write code and we build websites and we do all kinds of fun techie stuff that we get to nerd out on, because that's what I love to do. Other than like, trauma recovery and all things like psychology, I love building websites and doing tech stuff and learning how to function in an online space. It makes me so excited to like stay up to date with stuff like that. So super random, but I'll see you. If none of that works for you and you're not free a week from tomorrow and you don't want to pay $20 a month and you don't want to do all of that, just keep coming back here every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, nothing will change. I'll still be showing up. It'll still be great. So oh my goodness, there's so many of you that still stayed here. There's almost 30 of you that are still here all the way to the end. Thank you so much, you guys. You're so amazing. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'll see you right back here next week, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and every single Monday. And thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.